pleasure to be here with you and the rest of the panelists today. What I'd like to do today is drop down several levels from the conversation that we've had so far and actually speak about implementations that have occurred in the field and what discoveries we've had as a result of that and what lessons we've learned. At the end of the presentation, I give a couple of specific recommendations, and if people are interested in a handout related to digital twin naming, please feel free to reach out to me via email, and I'd be happy to provide you with some guidelines there. Let's see, let's move forward here. Okay, so this in-field experience that I mentioned a moment ago, what is the experience that we have? Just a quick highlight. We've deployed about over 20,000 sensors in the field and in 24 different countries over the last 18 months or so throughout the pandemic. We've deployed them in warehouses, offices, hospitals, nursing homes, and higher educational institutions. And we've done that with global enterprises, facility management companies, and healthcare institutions and universities. And that's included both innovative companies and also traditional companies. It's not one particular orientation that organizations have. And folks before have mentioned the need for change management. That's an important element of the deployment of digital twins. One of the things I wanted to start with is what are comments that we get after deploying our digital twins from our clients and from other parties, building contractors, cleaning contractors, housekeepers, etc. And that's what I've listed here. One of the issues with digital twins is the labeling of such digital twins, and we've had this refrain from clients: "Where's that room or space?" They'll see on a dashboard or a notification that services are required in a certain area. They're not familiar with the label that's used for the space, and that points to the need for being specific about the locations and familiarizing people with the digital twin, and so that they know how to take action based on notifications and spaces that are revealed to them. Another example of difficulty is something we call a motion event that comes from an IoT activity sensor, and people ask if a motion event is the equivalent of a people counter, and it's not, and that requires a conversion in the mind of the user to understand what a motion event is. And a motion event is when the sensor receives a person who is entering the space of the sensor, and it will capture that event. It will also capture a person leaving the space and any activity that is occurring in the space. So defining that for people and having people have an opportunity to get comfortable with that definition and seeing how that shows up in the way of data is a very important element. In addition to that, once people get familiar with the information, then they want to be able to take action based on that information. And it typically requires change, and that change is important and is difficult for people. Ultimately, with respect to a cleaning situation or with custodians, we're speaking with them about moving from a spatial-oriented model of cleaning to a usage-based model. And that's a real challenge, and I'll talk about that in a minute or so. So why should you care about digital twins? Specifically because, frankly, it's not really about the technology, it's about creating value with the data. And there are really three forms of value that are created. There are expense savings, the opportunity for new revenues, and importantly, the opportunity for changed business models. Each of those represent sequentially a more complex and difficult challenge for organizations. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, though, with respect to the first part of that journey, what are three steps that people incur? And those steps are getting familiar with the data, understanding that patterns in that data do emerge relatively quickly, and that presents them with opportunities for low-hanging fruit to take action. Most people are confused initially when they see the data coming out of the twin, and so we work with them to help them understand that. Once they have that understanding, it's time to do some modest experimentation with their operations and begin tweaking things a little bit. And from there, they then have an opportunity to actually restructure process, and that's a bigger challenge for them. So what have some of the surprises and discoveries been? Well, getting and understanding new data, assimilation takes time. We are not talking about when you make this information available, we're not talking about making it available to data analysts. We're talking about making it available to operators and people who have to take action. And those people have a job to do every day, and being able to take action specifically is very helpful for them. Moving from fixed to flow, what I mean by that is most in the sense of a cleaning opportunity within buildings, most spaces are cleaned based on a spatial model, not based on a usage model. A usage model is based on flow, and moving from a fixed spatial model to a dynamic flow model is a challenge. And so we work with operators to help them do that. The other thing is operators don't necessarily want to know just what the patterns are. They want to know specifically what action they should take, and it takes a little while to work with them to uncover those actions. So lessons learned. One of the big lessons is that we want to start not with tables and charts, but with graphics. Trying to deal with situations where you have 3, 4, 5, or 6 different languages that are spoken by people in individual buildings that are taking action. A graphic like what we're representing here is much easier for them to do their job, where green equals clean or red means skip the space. Small wins build momentum. People learn by doing. They learn by experiences, not by reviewing white papers. And doing frequent operational reviews is very important, and to allow them to progressively build their changes is something that helps them as they move forward. It's always important to understand that movement down this path of digital twinning and operationalizing is a journey, and it does take some time. So what are some digital twin naming guidelines, and why are guidelines important? Well, it's very important because when you ask people to take action, you're asking them to take that action based on dashboards and information that is showing up in dashboards, in notifications that may come via an application, text, or by email notifications. And it's important for benchmarking. So the labeling that you use and then the uniformity of that labeling is very important. And what I've just briefly reflected here is several elements of our digital twinning guidelines that we formulated over the last 18 months to create and follow uniformity and consistency, and to allow for the connection between the physical space and the labeling of that space and twinning, and allowing people to take action based on that. So with that, I'd ask Joe if you're going to come back on, and we can pick up any questions you might have.
Yeah, I'm here. We've received a number of questions. I also want to be cognizant of time and make sure we move right along. Maybe a quick one, Tom, which is a follow-up to the discussion we had, or the question I had for Emmanuel, which we'll probably talk about after as well when everyone's back together on the panel. Training skill set for implementing and using digital twins. Real quick, special skills. What's your take on that?
My take is you have to be very iterative about this approach. There are some special skills that are involved in getting things set up. You're not going to get it right the first time. It's going to take multiple iterations to do that. It is a broad team that you're working with. And what I just described, Joe, is really kind of the infrastructure that you put in place, but no value gets created by that infrastructure. It only gets created by actualizing that in operations. And that's where the bigger challenge is. It's working with the teams, doing training with them, and having an iterative and operational, frequent routine operational approach with them, because you're really changing the whole dynamic of the way they work.